Monday morning, you sure look fine. Friday, I got traveling on my mind. First, you love me, then you fade away.
All right. Dr. Welner joins us. Michael Welner, forensic psychiatrist, New York, chairman of the forensic panel, architect of the Depravity Standard. And I know I said short appearance, but I think we might want to keep him. He is so good, so interesting, and so helpful on these difficult questions. Good morning, Dr. Welner.
Good morning, Bill. I only come on with bad news. Unfortunately, we can never say nice to speak to you because it's usually under pretty awful circumstances.
Well, you walk around with a card that says architect of the Depravity Standard. What do you expect, you know?
I suppose, as someone once said, that the forensic psychiatrists are in the bad news business.
That's it. But we're so glad you're here because it helps. This is like final exam stuff. Short answer and then a long answer, a short question, then a blue book question. Short question. I'm a young woman, 23 years old. My boyfriend occasionally breaks out into rage, uncontrollable rage, then settles down, and occasionally says, someday the world will take notice of me. They'll know who I am. Is that grounds for reporting him to somebody? And who would you report him to? Just that itself?
It's a very difficult call because you're going to make that call that's going to irreversibly alter someone's life. And the reality is that there are quite a number of people out there who fantasize about these things. The short answer is that the solution to mass homicide and murder-suicide, such as we just saw in Germany, is a cultural one, surprisingly. It's a cultural problem, and it's a cultural solution. And it's going to get worse, and he just demonstrated how he can kill 150 people at once. And believe me, if Adam Lanza could have thought of that, then he would have done it for the numbers alone. So it's a difficult dilemma for the loved one, for the intimate, but a key point is, for purposes of vigilance, consider how many people a loved one at risk has the capacity to affect and even kill. And in a way, that should guide one's vigilance.
So, yes or no? Do you? I mean, I know you know.
I think under the circumstances, when someone's a pilot, we all have to be sensitive that there are certain professions where you have an enormous number of people's lives in your hands.
All right. Okay.
But the other quick point:
who would you say it to? The police, a doctor, to whom? Who would a distraught or worried, a 23-year-old woman say it to? The first option is to go to his parents or another close intimate. Okay.
The second option is to go to the treating doctor.
Okay.
And sometimes the treating doctor won't even talk to you. The third has to be to go to police and law enforcement, because even to go to an employer, the employer may take a path of least resistance and do nothing. And the first line of defense always has to be a loved one who can talk someone into appreciating the humanity of others, which is a real missing element here. But then when that is not possible because the killer in waiting is invested in the idea of doing what he's going to do, then the only people who can stop him are law enforcement. And school shootings have demonstrated that as an intervention strategy.
All right. Here's the blue book question. If I don't have my facts right, tell me. Calm voice, why don't you go to the bathroom? Pilot gets out, goes to the bathroom, locks the door, locks the system so the pilot can't get back in, override. Takes the plane down to crash it, and the part that chills me is the steady, even breathing. Is this a psychopath? How the heck does this happen? How crazy or angry do you have to be able to do this and want to do this and do it so calmly and seemingly dispassionately?
Spectacle mass homicide is about someone being invested in the idea of destructiveness as a matter of his worth. That transcends anger. It transcends depression. It's the idea of saying, I want to be somebody. I'm not going to be the great person that I thought I was going to be, so I'm going to define my greatness and my destructiveness. That's exactly why this is a cultural crime, because this never happened generations ago. People had the capacity to kill many people at once. They never did it. The model for the pilot was Chester Sullenberger, the man who landed his plane on the Hudson with no casualties because he said, I'm an orphan and I don't want my passengers' families to be orphans. It's a sense of responsibility and recognizing you have people's lives in your hands. That's transitioned culturally to a place where people feel their grievances are worth more than other people's lives. Their spectacle is worth enough to create, and this is what mass media does by probing these individuals endlessly. We have created monuments to obscenity, which is exactly what this is. Now, when we take the man in Norway and turn him upside down and legitimize whatever his grievance is, we create a monument to obscenity that this pilot says, hey, I could kill 150 people at once. And it's a lot easier. And unfortunately, folks who define their self-worth by destructiveness are merely drawing upon the cultural icons that we've established in our mass media and entertainment that say, hey, if you can kill a lot of people, you're worth something. That's obscenity. And if we don't reverse course, it's simply going to replicate itself with the sophistication of the means of destruction. It goes beyond guns.
Sure.
Okay? He didn't have a gun. He was able to kill 150 people. He
had a plane. So I know you can't bring a lawsuit, or I can't bring a lawsuit. None of us can bring a lawsuit against the media. But I'm anticipating the answer to my question, how did this happen in the culture? What changed in the culture? You're saying part of it is the mass media and the entertainment media.
I think the mass media is so responsible and the solution is so easy. Example. If mass killers were treated like Donald Sterling, it would never happen again. Do you think any business owner would even countenance the idea of saying something that could be interpreted as what the owner of the Los Angeles Clippers did? Of course not, because he had the president revulsed, because he had the people revulsed. He was forced to sell his business. Do you think that Jerry Sandusky, with his repeated sexual abuse of minors, the collective outrage over this, that anybody would want to copy him? These are copycat crimes. And the way that you extinguish a copycatting phenomenon is for people who fantasize about this to recognize no one's going to want to know about them. Everybody will want to know about how they're sexually dysfunctional, how they're personally dysfunctional, how they're a complete social reject, and how everybody would want to distance themselves. There's a line from the Old Testament that fits. May his name be blotted out from memory. It's so opportune that people who are attention-seeking will find that their name is not only blotted out, but anything associated with them will be attached to something ridiculed. You turn these people into Donald Sterling, and you extinguish it.
I'm not getting the distinction clear enough in my own mind. I see what you're saying, but what is it we do or say about Donald Sterling that we don't say about this guy? I'm not going to mention his name.
Donald Sterling is an example of someone who did something that the collective outrage was so unanimous and intolerant of understanding and considering, gee, what might he have been thinking in a rational place? He and Jerry Sandusky, who violated minors, that nobody would ever consider finding legitimacy or identifying with him. This man identified with another mass killer. He saw himself in him, and he saw how everyone found this man relevant. These are people who are seeking relevance, and he spelled it out to his ex-girlfriend. One way or another, time and again, individuals say, I'm going to be someone because I am a nobody, and my life is headed that way, whether it's a medical condition that disqualifies me from being the pilot and the captain that I thought I would, or whether it's Christopher Dorner and the LAPD saying, I wanted to be in LAPD and I couldn't work out my grievance.
Okay. Are you saying no one, the way the media handles it, no one wants to be Sandusky, but they handle this guy differently? It's not shame.
In other words, it's not the point of saying that everybody's going to turn into a mass killer. It's humanizing the obscene.
Okay.
And if you humanize the obscene, then you're going to find just enough alienated people who see themselves in him. You have to handle these incidents and these individuals in such a way that no one could see themselves in him.
Got it. We just have a little bit left. You can stay one more segment. I know I misrepresented the time, but we need you for a little longer. Can you stay a little longer?
Well, I'll try not to have a grievance against you for misrepresentation.
Okay. As the world goes, this is not a big and serious offense. I want you to comment on the HIPAA stuff. I mean, I know you're a doc. I know privacy is important, especially in your field, but my God, I mean, shouldn't these doctors have been allowed under the law to go to the airline and say, we got ourselves a problem? You got yourself a problem here? We'll ask Dr. Welner to answer that when we come back. Forensic psychiatrist Dr. Michael Welner stays with us. We're talking about the co-pilot in the cockpit. So these HIPAA rules, and in Germany they're apparently apply posthumously. Come on, there's got to be an exception when the lives of other people are at risk. And wouldn't doctors have suspected that? Or as you said earlier, hey, the guy's a pilot, so if he's having these nutty thoughts, maybe we ought to let the airline know. What about this?
Well, Germany has more restrictive laws, and there's going to be a vibrant debate about that in the aftermath. But your listeners need to be aware that for quite some time there has been a very active debate legislatively about this. And Congressman Tim Murphy of Pennsylvania has put forward a crisis mental health legislation, landmark crisis mental health legislation. In fact, I'm honored to have contributed specifically on this very HIPAA question, the notion that if doctors can identify that there is a threat, then there must be some sort of a conduit once someone gets out of the doctor's office in order to be able to enhance crisis management when the doctor is not sitting there at the elbow of the patient to try to defuse a ticking time bomb. And right now, whatever the law's actual verbiage, the way doctors approach HIPAA, and I'm saying this as a practicing psychiatrist and also in a forensic capacity, having to take things apart once the tragedies happen, doctors avoid disclosure. They avoid giving access to families. That's why you, as you're listening, if you have a loved one with serious mental illness, you've probably found that when you try to reach out to a doctor, he doesn't respond, doesn't want to listen, doesn't want to involve your input in treatment planning, and doesn't involve you in discharge and admission planning, and you're basically left holding the bag without instructions and without guidance. And so the illness runs the treatment. That absolutely has to change in order for large and small-scale tragedies to happen, because suicides happen with increased frequency absolutely because of this, because families who could have made a difference are kept in the dark because of the way HIPAA is applied. And those who feel differently will say, well, the language allows. Look it, I'm telling you, the doctors just make their lives easier and they keep their mouths shut. And it doesn't help treatment and it doesn't help families, and it has to change. And I would absolutely encourage the listeners to have their individual congressman support the Murphy bill, because that's exactly what we're trying to change.
Great. I'm delighted to hear you and Tim Murphy are in cahoots on this. We like him very much, and talk to him after the Connecticut shootings. Fred is in Lakeland. Excuse me. Go ahead.
Go ahead. Sorry.
Fred is in Lakeland, Florida. Let's squeeze in a question. We just have 2 minutes. Go ahead, Fred.
Good morning. Many of these violent acts. Good morning. Many of these violent acts are committed by people on mind-altering drugs prescribed by doctors. What is the potential for this situation to be caused by the drugs this pilot was taking?
Well, that's a very controversial question, and psychiatrists tend to be very defensive about that. And I'm a prescribing psychopharmacologist. I would say that there are. I take probably more of a middle of the road position. Most psychiatrists say there's absolutely nothing to it. What I would tell you is that there are certain circumstances in which a person may be on a psychotropic and they may be more agitated, or someone who's very conflicted, who's on a mind-altering drug, who's conflicted over the idea of mass killing. It's theoretically possible that once their anxiety is treated, then it's easier for them to embark upon a homicidal ambition that otherwise their anxieties inhibited them from undertaking. So, in other words, it's a perverse outcome of treatment that we sometimes see in suicide, that people actually take their own lives when they're starting to feel better because their inhibitions for killing themselves go away.
Wow. So there's something there can be something to the drugs not made me do it, but the drugs helped me do it.
You treat the illness, and you actually facilitate the homicidal choice because the anxiety of the illness is actually preventing somebody from doing something catastrophic. But then that gets to the core of this, which is criminal deviance. A preoccupation with illness as the engine of this, no. The illness is a catalyst, but the engine of this is a homicidal drive that says, I want to be destructive because it makes me somebody.
Thank you, Dr. Welner. Thank you. Thank you very much.